Right,
She was early.
yeah, right on time. So, all the regular meeting of the irrigation committee order is 2 minutes after 2. I'm doing roll call.
Member Todd? Here. Member McKay? Here. And then Member Duarte, she checked in with us. Member Sutton? Here. Member Threckle?
Here.
And Member Griffiths.
Yeah. Okay, adoption of agenda. Do we have a motion to adopt the agenda?
Pledge of allegiance.
Oh, yeah, I forgot. Sorry.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I don't. People hate me at the concerts.
Okay. Do we have a motion to adopt the agenda?
I move we adopt the agenda.
Second. Moved and seconded to adopt the agenda. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Public forum. Any member of the public may address the irrigation committee on any matter within the jurisdictional authority of the irrigation committee. Public members desiring to provide comments must be recognized by the committee chairman and speak from the podium. Comments must be directed only to the irrigation committee. Public should address the irrigation committee members during public meetings as chairman, vice chairman, secretary, or member, followed by the committee members' individual last name. Irrigation committee will hear communications on matters not on the agenda, but no action will be taken. No disruptive conduct shall be permitted at any irrigation committee meeting. Persistence in disruptive conduct shall be grounds for summary termination by the chairman of that person's privilege of address. Okay. Approval of minutes. Do we have a motion to approve the minutes? July 16th.
Do we have any public guides? Steve, you joining me? Okay. I don't see any hands online, so I think we're good.
I move we adopt the minutes.
Okay.
Second.
Moved and seconded to drop the minutes of July 16th. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Informational reports.
We have a water resources update. If you. Here's my single not loaded. I'm like having an internet issue here. So this is generally the same as was given at our board meeting, but you can see that we're still doing pretty well on the amount of water that's in Stumpy. The last time I checked, we were at 87%. So we've been doing really well. Should end the season pretty strong. The rain report is, I've heard, potential La Nina this year, so that could mean good things for us. Could mean lots more rain. I know there's a couple of rain days scheduled in the next couple of days, so we'll see how much we get here. I was told that there may be enough rain for 30 or enough snow for 30 days worth of rain. So hopefully it comes true and we have a good early start to the season. So that's pretty much the update for water resources right now. If you have any other questions, I'd be happy to take them.
That's good news.
Anyone have any questions? No, personally, I would love to see it rain just to settle the dust. Anyway.
On that.
Been too long. Anyway, action items, review of current and future water seasons. Identify season concerns and possible action referrals to the board. Do we have anything to add? Apparently not, and Adam isn't here, so.
Did we ask for public
Yeah,
forum?
please.
Did we ask for public forum input?
Yes,
Sorry.
that's all right. It was, right after the adoption of the budget.
No, it's for each item. Yeah, get those in.
Oh, okay. Okay. Review of cost of service and analysis for irrigation service.
And so we have a presentation, if you, at last, one of the last meetings, it was recommended that we go over the rate study process and kind of. Yes, sir,
I have a question. It says review of current and future water seasons.
yes. Yeah, so, this is
They
a,
don't do that, that comes out of him.
it's a standing item that we have on here, it was brought up about 9 months ago. And so if we have any recommendations for changes,
Oh,
it's
okay.
something that we can kind of,
Okay, it's a standing thing.
yeah, it's always on there. So we don't have any changes or any recommendations. It seems as though the timing with May 15th, October 15th seems to be working well.
Oh, yeah, I haven't had any complaints on that. I think we have actually managed to pretty much please everybody.
I mean,
There's been a few.
there's a few, but
There's a few.
it's been,
There's always
been much less, and we've had a couple of technical issues where we've had to shut water off here and there. But that's just to fix things or to try to
As
maintain.
far as the start and stop date,
Yeah.
I haven't heard anybody complain about it this time.
Yeah, same, no
Yeah,
complaints.
the year before, yeah. So,
I think at this time, if it were to be the staff's recommendation, we would continue moving forward with these date sets.
Yeah, the only thing we have to worry about from mid-October on is those dry, windy, that can happen
Yep.
at a moment's notice. Other than that, it's already cooled down and we're looking at rain, so it looks like we're good now, but you know, that's the only thing about those 2 weeks in October. They can be, I don't know,
There's a
volatile.
Vicious rumor of 100 degrees again.
90 on this weekend.
I've heard that too.
Founder's Day is gonna be hot.
I'm hoping not. I
90.
wish all the hot weather was gone.
90.
As long as it doesn't get to 105.
Yeah, that's right.
The days are shorter, so.
Yeah, that's
and
right.
it's
You don't have-
a little bit cooler.
Yes, yes.
All right,
Now the cost of service.
cost of service analysis, irrigation service.
Yeah, so there was a couple meetings ago, there was a request to go over the cost of service. Unfortunately, we were not able to meet with this last meeting because of the lack of quorum, so would like to open this up for, discussion and understanding. Currently, we are in the process of reviewing the report that has been given to the district from the consultant. And that's kind of where we're at. So if there's any suggestions, we can still incorporate some of those suggestions here today. So I'll just quickly run through. We're not gonna,
Number?
Hmm?
I said, did you bring your numbers?
We're both kind of shot it all down.
we can run through real quick. I'm gonna focus this more on the raw water portion of this. Obviously, treated water is tied to raw water, so there will be some treated water. And I'm going to forego the zone wastewater because it doesn't really pertain to this committee. Good. And we're gonna forego this because if you have a question, I can,
Page 31.
we're on page, rate study process.
Slide 4.
You're a little bit in front.
No, I was looking for the.
Oh, I'm sorry. The rate study process, basically, to do this, you kind of develop a policy framework that's developed by the board here. How, when, where, why, you wanna to kind of do these rate studies. Typically, they're done every 5 years. One has not been done since 2017. So we're just a little bit outside of that window. Part of that is due to making sure that the district had all the correct information to go ahead and do this. The next step is to develop a financial plan. So what a financial plan is to understand all of the district's expenses and understand what debts they have, what, major things that they need to, look for coming forward, which would be like your capital improvement type things. And so once you have an understanding of what the financial plan is, then you can determine how much it actually costs to deliver a service to the customers. So that's kind of the cost of service analysis. And then lastly, you have I guess not lastly, but then you develop a rate. So the big words that are used from our rate consultant and from the industry is you can't be arbitrary. You have to, have some sort of methodology to where your rate comes from. And you'll see kind of in the presentation where that comes from. And then lastly, documentation, and that's what we're on right now. So you have to provide a report, you have to make it transparent and defensible. In case of any legal challenges, this is the actual legal document that they refer back to and question whether or not it is arbitrary or not. So that is coming. It is not quite here yet. It will be at the next board meeting.
Where does that go to? Does that go to? I mean, if a study is prepared, whoever, you wait for someone to request it, or is it actually sent?
Like for the public, is that what you're asking? How the
Well,
public gets hold of it?
What is the question?
Is it more for us, the?
Yeah, is it just public information?
So it's-
Information, or is it for us water users?
It's absolutely public information. It's very technical. It's by all means, it'll be, we have a whole website that you'll see at the end where all the documentation is at, so you can review all of the pieces that went into making it. But yeah, you absolutely can read it. It's for your consumption. And if you had any questions, then we would be happy to, help you with any of those kind of questions.
What's all defined in the red study? Is it?
It's a lot.
A lot?
It's 87 pages.
Oh,
You,
my.
you must have open ditches and that type of stuff.
So we stay away
Cost.
from the technical aspect of how the system is run and more about the financials of what it costs to run the district. So it talks about, what is, the budget, what is the different pieces, how much inflation are we looking for over the next 5 years? Then kind of the debt management, part of it's all kind of broken into here. And then how they design the rate. And so so I'm gonna use treated water for an example, because it's a little bit more easy. 5/8 meter, 3/4 meter, 1-inch meter, how the different rates are set up and how we calculate all of those different pieces to that puzzle.
Okay.
Yeah, and so it will absolutely be available to everybody. We will probably have it posted, what is next week? Middle of next week?
Of course, you're talking about, treated water, but what about ditch water, the effective?
So that's
in there.
raw
ditches
water.
And repair on ditches, cleaning the ditches and
It's all included.
the whole 9 yards.
Yeah, so we don't say, we don't include it so specifically. It's included as the budgeted items. So they take our budget
Mhm.
and our expenses from our budget, and then they break that down and use those numbers.
So is there a state entity that obligates a water district to do this? I don't know about it, that's what I'm asking.
No, there's a law that
Oh.
requires us to go through a process,
Yeah,
but there is
so
no.
there's a state law that says you shall do this if you're a water agency.
No, so this is anytime a district needs to raise their rates, they need to follow that law.
Gotcha.
So,
Okay.
so a cost of service analysis is done
Hmm.
only as needed. So you can do one and not necessarily raise rates. So say we had, some generous benefactor who gave us $100 million endowment. We would basically say, here's what it costs to run the district, and since we have this nice, beautiful endowment, we don't need to raise rates. Unfortunately, there's no benefactor who's giving
Right.
Georgetown Divide $100 million. So what we do then is we look at how we can take what we have and what it's going to potentially be in 5 years and how we meet those costs. But there are districts who don't need to raise rates because they have other revenues, and so they don't necessarily need to follow all of these steps. So that law that we were talking about is a great segue, is Prop 218. Prop 218 was passed by the voters, so a proposition is something that's passed by majority vote within the state. It's not like a legislation thing, it's something that was put on the ballot by petition. This is what makes us have to follow these requirements. So as previously stated, if we're gonna keep the rates the same or lower the rates, a Prop 218 is not required. However, a Prop 218 notice is a 45-day window to protest or to ask questions, to get more information. And then we put this on a public hearing and it is put forth as a potential rate increase. So you have a couple requirements that are within here. You can't exceed costs. You can't be, you can't, again, this is where the kind of the arbitrary comes in. You can't just say, I think we need 50% more money because I feel like it. You have to have some sort of, method to your madness. What's that?
Justification.
Justification, that's a great word.
Yeah.
And so proportional is a good word, arbitrary is another word, we cannot be arbitrary, we cannot subsidize another class. So that was something that was brought up in the past, was treated water subsidizing raw water and vice versa, so all of those things have been taken into account, and we think we have some defensible rates. Go one more.
So what you're saying is the ditch water people are doing okay, the finances are okay, the costs are okay. So you don't have to up the ditch water or vice versa, the treated water.
It's both. You
Yeah.
have to increase.
It don't work that way.
Yeah, so what I'm saying is you can't, since you guys are lumped into one enterprise fund,
Yeah,
we cannot, break out how much raw water is increased and make it different. It has to be the same rate. I'll explain, you'll see,
Okay.
that question may be
Okay.
answered in a minute.
okay, that seems kind of wild to me.
Well, so unfortunately,
Maybe the cost is the same, maybe, I don't know.
so, yeah, let me go through it and then maybe I can answer your questions. Keep going one more.
Sure.
So basically, the current adopted rates are insufficient, since the last rate increase that happened in 2019. Since that date, approximately 19% inflation has occurred. And there are substantial capital expenditures that need to take place over a 5-year period. And it's actually even over a longer term than more than 5 years. So we looked and did a Castle study. That's basically like a 35 to 50-year look, and we have a pretty substantial capital improvement plan over that time frame. But we can only look at 5 years of that. So kind of what is the nitty gritty here is rates will not cover operating costs past 2025. The district will be going into something called technical default by 2026. And by 2029, the district will be insolvent, and will run out of money. Go one more. So how do we fix this? Keep going. Basically, the balances that we need to have are right here on the, beginning fund balances are on the top, and then what we actually have to have for reserve targets is on the bottom there. So generally, we have to have about $4.3 million in reserve funds to be able to operate the district and to meet all of our expenditures and potential emergencies. 33% of a year, so 120 days is our operating reserve. That's $1.7 million. We have about $600,000 in capital reserve targets, capital replacement reserve targets, excuse me. And then we have about $2 million in emergency. So the $600,000 is when you go to start a new project, you have to have a little bit of money in the bank to start that project before if you got a grant, you still have to pay for a portion of that before you get any kind of reimbursement. So those are kind of what we're gonna need for reserve targets for capital replacement. And then the emergency is, we have a blowout, a major blowout, or we have some sort of issue with the dam or other things. We have to have some money in reserve in an emergency fund to be able to pay for those things. One more. Okay, so this is kind of the way they call it the status quo or the do nothing. I think you're a little too far. Go back one more. So, let's go one more actually. Down 2 more. Thank you. So what you'll see here is the black line is the current revenue that we have. The blue bar, the darker blue bar is what it currently is O&M, it's operations and maintenance expenses. Green would be our debt service. Gray is rate funded CIP, so that's not grant funded CIP. There's two different kind of funding we have, and if you look at our budget, we break those out pretty consistently. And then, if we do nothing and we have zero expense rate increase, then you can see that at 2029, we have exceeded pretty far over what our rates are, our revenues are now. Can I have one more? So this is kind of the where we get into the red. So currently we're in the green, we're doing okay, we meet our goals, we meet our fund balances, we meet all those reserve targets. In 2026, we start to spend some of our reserve targets, some of our reserve funds, we start dipping into our savings, so to speak. 2027, we're dipping a little bit more into our savings. 2028 again, 2029, we are generally referred to as insolvent, or there is no more money in the bank. Go on more. This is the big issue that we have before that. So we have debt. One is the Sweetwater treatment plant. We have a small one at Walton, and we have the meter charge. So those are debt coverages that we have to maintain. If at any point we do not have 110% of debt coverage, then we are being called within technical default. And at that point, any of the creditors who have given us money could call for all of their money back, because they're gonna see the trend of us not having any money in the bank very, very soon, and they're gonna want their money back before anybody else does. So that's something we want to avoid.
It aren't each one of those items you just mentioned dealing with water treatment, not specifically irrigation?
It's still one enterprise fund.
I get it, but those are directly related to treated water,
Right.
not specifically irrigation.
I understand.
Okay,
And even if they're not separated now, perhaps they should be.
I mean, that could always be explored in the future. So our proposed financial water financial plan proposed scenario is to increase rates by 15% in the first year and then 10% in the 4 out years. Now, this isn't this is only a maximum level. This is nobody is setting, these rates for the future. If other money and other funding, other revenues come through, these are always reassessable, and that is something that the board has committed to, that they're going to continue with the financial model, continue with the financial planning, continue with the company that we are working with now to ensure that we are on track and we are not overcharging our customers. I think that's definitely the tenor of the board, is that there never wants to be an overcharge, and that we only want to collect what is needed to run the district. So as you can see, these numbers are still the same, but now we're able to have those reserve targets met at the end of the 2029 year. And this just shows where we have the fund balances. So what you're looking at here is any time that the dotted line is outside of the green is something that would be a negative to the district. And since we're in the green the whole way, then we are generally good to go. And then again, this is to show the debt coverage ratio. We never make it below the dotted line. We never make it in a technical default. And again, we cover all of our debts. So we can now talk about the water cost allocations and how we look at the different pieces to the puzzle, right? And this is kind of where the complicated nature of the one enterprise fund comes in, and maybe we'll answer some of those questions and you'll understand why it would be very difficult to pull this apart. So right now, the operating revenue requirement is about $5.3 million for the water fund. Now we have offset revenue of about $564,000. This includes our investment income. This includes our SMUD. It includes our penalties. It includes our leases. It includes a lot of different pieces that adds up to that $564,000. Our capital requirement. So this is any kind of CIP work we're gonna do. It averages, this is the first year, so 2024 is about $726,000. It does average to be about $750,000 over the 5-year period. Again, Walton debt service, that's the lower one, it's $25,000. We have the Sweetwater treatment plant debt service, that's $587,000. And we have another offset of revenue, that's the hydro that we generate power with. And we have the property tax revenue, which is about $2 million. So the total that we have to account for is approximately $4.086 million. Good. So this is how it's kind of allocated around. One of the things that we one of the most difficult pieces of this is how you delegate different pieces of the funding to different areas. So again, this is gonna answer your questions about, since these charges aren't put on the wrong customers, you'll see kind of where we're at here. We looked at this as, so treated water is about 1,367 acre feet of water. The untreated irrigation or raw water is about 3,749 acre feet every year. So you can see there's about 3 times more water that is used for raw water than there is used for treated water. Total is about 5,116 acre feet of water. So some of the ways that we can start to break this down is number of connections. There's 3,784 connections in the treated system, and there's 539 connections in the raw system. There's annual acre feet usage, which I just explained, so that's a different way of looking at it. And then there's the reliability usage. And so what is reliability usage? It's kind of a complicated one. Raw water can be cut off at a moment's notice because it is not a health and safety concern, but treated water is a health and safety concern, and we cannot shut that water off. So it has to be there reliably. One of the factors we came up with was a reliability factor of 7 times, and that is because for 7 months of the year, those treated customers are receiving more, not more water, but water where raw water customers are not. So that is one of the things that is helping to keep your rates lower, is by using this reliability factor, because you are able to be cut off and you do not have to have your water for health and safety concerns. So this, you'll see where the reliable usage, do you see where it goes from? In treated, they're only getting credit for 1,300 acre feet. Well, in the reliable usage portions, they're actually getting credit for the 9,500 of the total. So the 13,000 is actually how much water is put through the system every year. And we need to account for all of that. And it needs to be accounted more in the treated water than it does in the raw water. So I hope you guys understand where that would help make the raw water rates less, because we're putting more onus on the treated water rates. Lastly, we have a couple different, how we percent allocate those. So the number of connections is 88 to 12%. The annual water usage is set 27 to 73, and reliable usage is 72 to 28. So go ahead. So now we look at the different fund sources and how we allocate those costs throughout the district. So source of supply, that's generally what we would consider from, this is kind of arbitrary, so don't quote me on all of this, but that would be from Stumpy to our the tunnel is source of supply. And so we're saying that because a lot of that water goes to the treatment plants, 72% of that is going to be utilized under the reliability. This is the reliable usage portion. So 72% of the costs get allocated to treated, and 28% get allocated to the raw water. So, and then raw water is generally considered from the tunnel through the rest of the raw water canal system. And since the 2 water treatment plants are on that canal system, we are also including this as reliable usage. So this could be thought of even higher because of the canals that are past the water treatment plants, but we're still allocating 72% of those costs to the treated water customers and to the raw water customers, so 28%. So not 100% of that goes to the raw water, where a lot of those, ditch cleanings get billed to, a lot of the workers who are working on those ditches, those get billed to that raw water department. Okay, water treatment is 5,300, so that is all treated water. So there will be no raw water customers being charged for any of the water treatment work. So it's 100% going to the treated customers. Same with Department 5,400. So that is all being billed towards the treated water customers, and none of that is going to be reflected in the raw water rates. Now with admin and customer service, it's based on connections, because that's when you come in, you call about your bill. We looked at that as 88% of those calls, because of those are the connections. So there's 88% of the people. We're gonna take that and allocate the cost of 5,600, 88% to treated and 12% to the raw water customers. Now, here's where it gets a little bit complicated. It says $0 in the additional hydro expenses, but what you want to notice here is, because we're running more water through the system when we are having raw water usage. So when you are using your irrigation water, we are running obviously 3 to 4 times more water through the system. So we're gonna then give more credit to the raw water customers for the hydro that we develop. So we get about $55,000 every year in hydro revenue. And so you can then say that treated only gets 27% of that, and the raw water customers get to realize 73% of that revenue as well. So it would be for both expenses and revenue. And right now there are no hydro expenses, but we do have revenues. So there's more that is put towards the raw customers. But
I got a question for you.
yes, sir.
Why couldn't we get more hydro? We got
We're working on it.
miles of ditch.
So the biggest,
Right,
really quick on
24
this,
hours
a
a day.
really quick aside is, connection,
Connection.
connection costs. So
Yeah.
we're working on, I have a $7 million appropriation I'm working on to get one at Stumpy.
Yeah.
And I'll give you a quick fun fact. How much do you think of that cost is the generator to actually generate the power? $7 million in total project.
But a lot of it goes to
Yeah,
the
probably
generator.
a lot. 80%?
No, it's all lines.
$750,000 is for the generator.
Ah.
$6.2 million is for the power lines to get it to a place.
Wow.
That's why it hasn't been done, right?
It's
Because of the
part,
cost
it's
of-
part of the reason why, and the other part is because of the obvious fire risk, and so
Yeah.
we have to work with PG&E to get the power lines how they want them, so that we don't have a liability for that, but we are working on
Yeah,
hydro.
maybe just,
The tree companies are excited. Yeah.
'cause, you know, basically you got water running all the way down to the treatment plants,
Yep.
24 hours a day, 365 days a year. Just think how many power plants you could put on that thing to generate money,
All right.
where you could have a raise.
That is definitely something that we are working on, and so like I said, we've looked into water wheels, so we're still working with a company that's gonna put some water wheels kind of in line. And then we have other metrics that we're looking at to generate
Oh,
more hydro.
that's wonderful.
So, yeah.
Yay.
Definitely,
That's good, because that's gonna help out a whole bunch.
yeah, yes, definitely something we have, the same thought process on. Okay, so now this is a bigger, kind of different one. When you see the number, this is the $72 million that I was referring to earlier, of how much actual costs we need to have, you know, kind of thought of throughout the years, and where the district really needs its, much of its money spent in the future. So you always hear about aging infrastructure and all the other things. This is where those big numbers come in, and this was our asset management that we did. And so you can see it's the same kind of metrics that we decided to break this up as in general administration. That's based on connections. Hydroelectric, again, that's based on the water usage. So hydro is using more, so we're giving them you know, a little more. Source and supply, so it's reliable usage, and then raw water, reliable usage, and then again, the two treated, this is where you again have it only 100% being spent on treated. Keep going. And so again, here's where the revenue requirement is, kind of where the rubber meets the road on this one, is that $4 million earlier, that $4.086 million. Here's how we allocate it around. So the operating requirement of the 5.3 is based upon the 88%. Then you have the revenue offset is again 88%, 12%. The capital is based on the one I have. So if you look, can you go up one, two? Go down one, sorry. So you see at the bottom, the capital, we have it as 8317. So it's not arbitrary, but it's a weighted average of those percentages. Go down. So that's what we have here. And then again, the Walton debt service. Now here's your answer to your question. Are we paying for the loans in raw water? And you can see clearly here that we are not. We are paying 100% of their loans to treated customers. So raw water customers are not subsidizing any of those treated loans. So that's kind of the answer to your question, I hope. And then again, you guys get the credit for the revenue offset, hydro revenue offset. And then for the property tax, we used it based on connections. So 88% goes to treated and 12% goes to raw. Okay. Now this is what those numbers kind of look like is, so basically this is going to be the answer to one of your questions is, are we doing okay? Well, you guys were actually underpaying by about 4.6%. So you should have been paying 4.6% more according to the last rate study. And the treated water customer should have been paying about 0.5% less. Okay, so it was a little bit off, but it's not off in such a way that it would be looked upon as a subsidy. So it's small, but not a lot. Keep going. So what is the rate structure? So now we've talked about, actually, maybe I'll stop there. Does anybody have any questions about the financial model and we can go into the rate structure? Yes, ma'am.
On this last one, I'm just curious, if this takes into account the fact that we lost so many irrigation customers so that the revenues went down as a result of the rate increase?
It could potentially be part of it, but it would be hard to quantify that question.
But it's definitely a component.
There's a couple different things. So the rate increase wasn't the only thing that lost customers. We also lost customers because of the backflow requirements that we have. So quite a few customers did not want to have that, and they dropped their water service as well. Yes, ma'am.
Where in this, before we get into the income details, is the expectation of inflation?
So it's when we look at, I don't have the number, I can give you the numbers, I don't have them in here, but they're, when we look forward for 5 years, it's that,
So it's coming, is what you're saying?
it's baked into the numbers, but there
Okay.
will be a justification within the report of where those numbers came from.
Very well.
Depends on a lot of outside factors beyond us.
It is a crystal ball, and crystal balls are never correct, and that's one of the reasons why if we can continue to revisit this, then we can get it right. There's an old saying in the modeling world: a model is only right for about 5 seconds after you publish it, and then it's wrong. So there always going to be some potential for it being higher or lower, but as long as we don't just set this on a shelf and don't keep working with it, then we will have a problem. But when we continue to work with it and we continue to learn and do things, then this will be yes, sir.
Did you say the final report is done?
It is not the final report. We're legal is reviewing, myself and the staff and legal is reviewing it. So I'm hoping by Wednesday or Thursday next week it's ready. Before then, maybe. It'll be ready before the week before the board meeting.
Didn't we settle on 3%?
We did not.
Oh, inflation? We were
We did
hashing that back and forth, 2.8.
We have it's better for the study to use it the way it was originally intended because it would not become arbitrary. So a 3% inflation rate is arbitrary. It's kind of a number that we just kind of pulled out of our pocket. And if we utilize the different metrics that we can explain, then it's better for any potential legal challenges.
Any of our debt service on, the interest rate flexible, or they all fixed?
They're all fixed. They're all, state revolving fund, so they're all through the state. They're not like a bank.
The, final report's gonna show the whole breakdown of the inflation calculations.
Correct. It has, all the different categories and it has, like a chart that goes with all the different categories. Is that what you're asking for?
Yeah, I just wanted to be able to determine what for example, the annual increase is projected to be.
It's on the bottom, yeah, it's on the bottom. They have a kind of they take all of the categories like, it's materials and it's labor and it's all the different like metrics and they put a percentage for each one and then they put an average on the bottom for what it should be.
Okay.
Okay, so really, I'm gonna burn through some of the treated stuff because it's not as important, but if you can go one. So before, all the treated customers had, if you were an inch, 3/4 or 5/8, you all paid the same rate. So we're breaking the 5/8 and the 3/4 out because 92% of our customers fall within those categories. I would say most of you all do. If you go one more. This is kind of generally what our rates are now. $61 bi-monthly rate of base charge up into 1 inch and then bigger than 1 inch, whereas where you see larger increases. One of the things that we, as a policy that we recommended and are recommending that the board adopt is a larger low income rate assistance program. So it was 25% before, we're recommending 50%. For the base charge up to 1 inch. So 5/8, 3/4, 1 inch would get a 50% off. Any of the bigger ones would not. Supplemental charge, this is just paying for the treatment plant that was originally put on for Sweetwater. Basically the 5/8, 3/4, 1 inch all paid the same all the way down to 4 inch. And we are recommending that because a 4 inch meter is using more of that treated water, they should pay for more of the plant. And we're changing the supplemental charge to accommodate that. The 5/8 meter, 3/4 meter will actually go down in their supplemental charge about $7. So there'll be a little bit of a savings there for those customers. Keep going. So this is generally what the meter charge will look like if you combine the two. So where it was $91 before, we're proposing for 92% of our customers a $4.04 increase every 2 months. So next, this is kind of a look at what kind of water usage you use. So if you have a 5/8 meter, you are a very low water user, you'll see about a $5 difference in your bill every 2 months. If you're a heavy water user, you have the most lush Garden of Eden at your house, you'll see about a $25 every 2 month increase, or about 11%. So you heard 15% in the beginning. It's not quite 15%. The most we get out of this is about 11%. Now, when you get into like a 1 inch meter, so some of the newer homes that require the fire sprinklers, that's where we start to see a little bit bigger increase in these rates. But okay, so here's the raw water portion, which we can kind of really dial into a little bit more. So we're gonna obviously continue to maintain the miners inches. There are 8 customers who fall outside the district, and in their last rates, I'm sorry. And in the last rate study, they were not, we changed some of the ways that things were billed. So they originally paid a larger rate because their property taxes do not come to the district. So theoretically, you all who are within the district were subsidizing these 8 people from outside the district, and we're giving them low rates for the last about 6 years. And so we are adjusting that. And again, we're still looking at the 15 and the 410s because it has to be the same. We can't arbitrarily say treated water gets a 15% increase and raw water gets a 5% increase because of the enterprise funds relation. Okay, so if you go on more. Boy, that's super small. So right now we're at $77 for half a minor inch or $154 for a 1 minor inch. We are proposing $91 for half of minor's inch in 2025 and $183 for 1 minor's inch in 2025. The outside the district, again, that's where we kind of get a little bit higher. So the outside will be 160 for a half an inch and 321 for an inch. And again, that's not to hurt them or to, to be punitive towards those customers. It's just so that they're making sure to pay their fair share and that they are being compensating for the property tax that goes to other people instead of us. And then, so the proposed new bill, this is a minor's inch per month. So if you have 1 minor's inch, you currently pay $154.20. You will now pay $183.44, difference of about $29.24, or approximately a 19% increase. Outside the district is $154.20. Proposed bill would be $321.23. Difference of about $176.03, or about 108% difference. That's basically what we have, but I do want to,
I
it's
thought
not
it was
online.
15%, so you just said whatever that was
Yeah,
over 15.
so that's the 4.6% that I mentioned earlier. That was the kind of where you were not paying the correct amount.
Oh.
So we have to include that. That's part of the 19%. So
Oh.
yeah, so it's 15 plus the 4.6%.
So we have to recoup that money.
It's not necessarily recouping, it's reallocating the money. So we're not actually spending more to build up like a reserve. It's reallocating the costs so that they're here now.
That's new.
What's new?
We're adding that 4.6 to the,
No, that was always on here. That was never explained that way.
okay.
Well, you brought up a question, not the same thought, is how can you say that it's a 19% increase for, raw water, and you're only doing a 15% increase because you said.
That's just for the bill. That's just what the bill will look like. It's not a 19% increase for raw water. That's just what the bill will look like.
What?
So it is.
So it's different. You're thinking cost of service versus rate structure. There's two different metrics here. You have, this is a little bit easier to understand because it says less complicated than it is treated. So you can, there's not as many different, you have different meter sizes. So it looks a lot different because we can allocate costs to the larger meters and we can increase the base rate on larger meters and it offsets the cost of the smaller meters. There's more metrics that we can put in. Here you have one metric. You have basically these inside the districts and you have 8 of these guys that are outside the district that, that's just not a lot to put into the bag, that, so to speak. So the 19% is showing all over the one. So that's basically the one piece to the puzzle that we have here with raw water.
So to offset that 19% for certain customers, are you doing less percent somewhere else, or?
No.
This isn't making sense to me.
Help me understand what part we're not understanding.
I'm not understanding the part where you say in the beginning of this that you're doing a 15% increase, and yet.
Yes, it is a 15% increase
Now you're
over.
saying this is a 19%.
So the financial plan for raw water and treated water is 15%. The rates to get there is 19% for 1 minor's inch. It's a different metric.
In other words, you get take plus water, you pay more.
You take what, so what are you paying one? I'm not sure I understand that.
If you take 5 inches of water versus 1 inch of water.
No, you pay the same. It's every inch will be the same cost. So you just multiply by however many inches you have.
Yeah, for some reason, I don't remember the 19%. It
I don't
was
either.
15 and 15, and that's the only numbers we were talking about.
I probably,
Through all those 3 town hall meetings, it was only discussed at 15 and 3 times, and then when we had our meeting in here, it was only 15%. So that's why I'm a little confused where I mean, I know I saw originally in that one slide that we were 4 point whatever under previously, but I didn't know, I did not hear that the irrigation customers were gonna have to eat that 4.6 for this price increase. I was told time and time again, it would just be 15 for water and 15 for irrigation, not 15 for water and 19 for irrigation.
So
Am I hearing it? Yeah, that's what I remember too.
that's
So,
what well, and that's what, when I did my alternate proposal, and I had different percentages for treated
yeah, because
versus,
we couldn't do that.
they said they're gonna do that, they had to be the same.
it's not different. And maybe I misspoke, so let me try to, there's not different percentages. It's the same 15% for both raw and for both treated.
I'll do some math.
And the
That's-
additional 4% is from what?
You have to go back to that.
It's
other
actually
slide.
not an additional 4%. It's how the rates are allocated throughout the different rate structures.
Okay. We'll go back and study it.
Yeah,
Because what it said originally was,
it's 15% for both
Correct.
treated and raw.
yeah, so here's
Mhm.
where we're at the 15%.
But
But
it's,
what I'm saying is, the only time we saw it was where it shows that we were slightly less than, we weren't making, like this year, we were 4.6% less than where we should be. Not that we now have to catch up that 4.6 on top of the 15.
we're not, that's not exactly what I'm saying. What I'm trying to show is, it's easier to see you have only one metric, there's only one way of calculating raw water, it's miners inches. You don't have meter size, you don't have, different metrics that are going into how that water is getting to your system. So,
But it's still not 15%.
I'm
I
sorry,
mean, no matter what you say and explain it, it's still not 15%.
it's not, and it's because, it is because of the misallocation, but it's not, you're not paying more than 15% on the whole. So and this is really confusing, but there's 2 different ways of looking at this. There's a financial plan and there's a rate structure. So a financial plan is, we need to generate 15% more revenue from both treated water and raw water. Okay, then you take those numbers and you determine how you allocate those. That's why we went through all the different percentages. It's how you allocate those to the different customers to make it fair. So we're trying not to become arbitrary. We can't just have the subsidy questions like we've had before, where if treated water is subsidizing raw water, then these rates would not be fair. So what we did was we reallocated all of the different pieces, all the different funding requirements into a rate structure. So the rate structure is different than that 15%.
This still sounds like, an incredible exercise for the end of an accounting class.
It is, very much is.
I think we was trying to say it costs more to run water down a ditch than it does through a pipe.
Well, if you look, that's the money that is, you can look right there, the operating requirement is $4.7 million versus $629,000. And so that's where the difference is in how much revenue we need to generate.
But I think we need to stop saying 15% for raw water, because that's not,
That's not true.
you may be the way you have to juggle the numbers to make it all good, but it's still gonna be a 19% increase for raw water.
And
And then is it going to be,
Let me speak.
Depending on where it goes.
Sorry, I interrupted you and you had your hand up.
I understand what you're saying when you're splitting it up between all the different meter sizes. Okay, but you just said, you did that, okay, that's for the treated water side, but you said in the raw water side, there's 1 min/inch, that's it. And I just did the math, and it is a 19% increase on the raw water, it's not 15%, it's 19%. Which goes against when, well, you guys all wouldn't be aware of this, but I came up with an alternate rate schedule, did a ton of math and all that sort of stuff. And I had a lower increase for the ditch water than I had for the treated water. And I was told that you couldn't do that because it's all one enterprise, the increases have to be the same. Okay, but it was also, they're done at 15%, for the first year. And then I was proposing 5% for additional years, because in my math is, in my opinion, we're overcharging by a lot. So, but this goes against what I was told or what we were all told at the last board meeting. So this 19% is not making sense to me.
But the 19% is the number that's always been there. We haven't changed this. This is how the numbers are allocated throughout the rate structure. They're not the 15%, and you cannot look at them the same way. If I could ask you what math you used to calculate your 19, whatever, what did you do to do math?
I took 15% of this.
Of what?
Of what the current one is for the first year, I calculated 15%.
Can you tell me what 15% of what number?
The current rate.
Yes, it is absolutely 19% more money. That is not how much, that is not the
Well, you
increase.
don't tell people that we're doing a 15% rate increase and then do a 19% rate increase.
Okay, but if
And-
you look
And
at.
then is it 10 every year after that, or is it 14.6?
Yeah, that's right. There
Yeah.
you go.
That's the next
Should be
question.
five.
The numbers are right there. You can look, if you go to
But
the
that's
second.
right.
Figure that one out, see what 10% is, if you don't mind. I'm just curious now.
Yeah, because that
10% of
was what was,
Well,
that was what was given to the
The
public
last second.
And the board,
The last.
and the
rates
board.
And the board.
for the
Yeah,
last
raw water
4
stuff.
meetings. And that's why it concerns me now, because we had talked about it quite extensively about this 15%. And now it makes me wonder, are we working 19, 14.6, 14.6 and 14.6? Or are we, because clearly 15 is non-existent. We're actually going up 19. And like we brought up at the last board meeting, we discussed it extensively. We have to have these numbers, let's say 15 and 15, because it's the same enterprise fund. We can't have 15 and 19,
It's not,
or 15 and like what Mike had come up with, the other scenario being less. We couldn't do that. So if we can't do it to lower it, how can we do it to raise it?
so that is not,
is it 10%?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
hold on. That's not, you can't say it that way because that's not what I'm saying here. It's not 15 and 19. It's the 15% is a totally different category than where the 19% is. If you wanna get into the down and dirty like that, then go look at the treated water customers. Some are gonna pay 5%, some are gonna pay 11%, some are gonna pay 67% difference. So that's, but hold on, you gotta let me finish, because you're saying something that's not correct. It's not a 19% versus the 15%. It's how the rates are allocated throughout the system.
I understand exactly what you're saying, but what you're saying is it's allocated differently for the treated water because all these different meter sizes. You said so that 15%, and some customers only gonna say like 7%, depending on what size your meter is, how much you use. So there's gonna be not a 15% across the board because it is allocated differently. That's the treated water. The raw water, you stated, is not. It is 1 min/inch, that's it. So when you have on here, that you're saying year 5, it's 15% increase, and then 10% each one, then it should be a 15% increase, not a 19% increase.
So when you look at the revenue requirements within the financial plan, it then takes 15% of that portion. And then they take and allocate that, what's the revenue requirement,
Mhm.
and then they divide it by the number of minor inches that we have.
So I get that. So I get where you're coming up with the number. That makes sense, but we have to stop saying 15%. That's all. It's all the big bubbles 15, but our piece of the pie is 19.
And then that's the best way to say it. The big bubble is 15. And I'm sorry for that. You're right. To take the whole enterprise fund, it is a 15% increase. And for your portion, for the raw water portion, you are 100% correct. A 1 miners inch will see a 19% increase, but that's not different than the 15%. They're two different pieces. We're talking apples and oranges at this point. We're not talking only apples. You are talking, you're trying to make and throw an orange in with the apples and say, well, it's 19%, and it's just not. It is a 19% increase on their bill, on their rate, but not in the overall revenue requirement, which is what the 15% is the metric is.
I think it just needs to be reworded, so it's
No.
just understood better. So it's like the increase for the whole group, all of us, every treated, irrigation, the whole 9 yards, all of us, that bubble, is a 12% increase. And then it's allocated like cutting up a pie. Uncle Fred gets a little piece, Auntie Bill gets a big piece. And so irrigation water, we get 19% of that. So that's our share of the 12% increase. But we have to stop saying it's a, I don't know, 15, sorry. So, but I think to make it helpful, we gotta distinguish those
So
two.
why is that 4.6 coming up now? Why isn't it, I mean, I'm not asking for a bigger bill, but why are we only doing 4.6 first year? And why is 4.6
So-
not allocated across the board? I mean, just saying, so if we're arbitrarily throwing 4.6 in there this year, next year, then where's it at? Are we just trying to do a catch up here?
No, it's not making
Well,
any
then-
sense to me
Then
at
it's
all.
not it's not making sense to me either.
Yeah, this,
Are we playing catch up?
No,
Then why is
The
it
fo-
4.6?
I shouldn't have said the 4.6 was on top of the 15%. That was me misspeaking. What I was trying to say with the 4.6 is previously treated water rates were subsidizing raw water rates by 4.6%. When the new revenue requirement comes in, the 19% is how that is allocated
Yeah,
out.
okay. Mhm.
So 15% is the total that we need to, so we had, remember the 5.3 million in the beginning? We need to have 15% more than that. And then it takes all the percentage pieces that we went through and it allocates all those percentage pieces out. This is, as was stated by member Todd, this is such a complicated accounting exercise. It can't be looked at so linearly that it's just 15%. It is how the rates are developed, which is so different than what the financial model states. There's a couple,
If you go back to the treated meter charges, you know, the 5/8 and the 3/4 are going up by like 3% that first year.
yes,
Yeah,
That's based on size.
that's based on water availability and water flow and a lot of different metrics.
but it could end up being 19%, so I wouldn't.
No,
Yeah.
it's just
I
so
wouldn't,
big.
I wouldn't count
No,
on that.
I get it now. I understand. It makes sense. It's just worded where at first my brain didn't understand how it was worded. So it's that 15% that gets us.
I
Where,
understand 4 meetings, we didn't get it.
yeah,
And I'm still not swallowing this well.
This is the first time we're hearing it.
oh, yeah.
And this is the 4th time we've gone through this presentation. So we're kind of surprised.
The 19%'s always been in the presentation. It's been in all 4 presentations. And it's, I just.
Maybe the dollar
shouldn't
amount
have
was there
misspoke.
and nobody did the math in their heads. Oh, wait, that's not 50%, that's 19%.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
it's different. It's not based on. I don't know how else to explain it any differently than a financial model is not the rate structure. There are, let's go back to the first slide, second slide, third slide, whatever it is. No, hold on. We're gonna start over because I wanna make sure that we're all understanding and I'm not getting
I'm not
accused
gonna have
of
time to
saying
do that.
anything I'm very being accused right now of something that wasn't here, but it was always here. Go down one more, please.
It probably wasn't
Go down
explained.
one more, please. So there are 5 different pieces to this rate study process. There is a policy framework of how, when, and where, and why we do this rate study. There's a financial plan that tells how much we need to develop for cash flow.
I
That's the
get all
15.
that. All I'm
Okay.
saying is you do not tell the customers that in year one, your rates are going up 15% when they're actually going up 19%. I don't care about the justification.
Right.
You put it out there. This is not a 15%, it's a 19%, because that's what it is. If you look at how much they're paying now, how much they're gonna be paying next year, it's 19% more. That's what needs to be disclosed to the customers.
Mhm.
Not, none of this, I dare say wordplay, but it's like, to me, this is flat out misleading.
Mhm.
Their rates are going up 19%, not 15%. So then that calls into question what I was told at the last meeting, why my numbers wouldn't work, is because you can't have a different increase for irrigation than you have for treated. It has to be the same increase. It is not the same
No,
increase.
it's not.
So that's where I'm coming from, and I apologize for getting a little excited, but like Donna said, this is the 4th time we've gone through this exact same presentation as board members, and this is the first time we're hearing this. So,
And when we bring up something to question it at a board meeting with a contractor there and he gets miffed because we question his numbers, that's a little upsetting too.
Really? Wow.
I welcome you to read the report. It will explain all of this in the report.
and that's what I'm gonna reserve my judgment for. Is I wanna see the report and understand, because this is going against, I went through 3 days to come up with an alternate plan. And my alternate plan was shot down for 2 reasons. One, you couldn't have a different rate increase for treated than you have for irrigation, because it's one enterprise. And the other was that all of a sudden, even though we had an average of 3.8% inflation rate over the last 5 years, and we plugged in, I made the whole thing variable, so we can plug in what we want, plug in 3, and then everybody was fine, then all of a sudden, everybody's talking all these high inflation rates to insane amounts. And then saying, well, you don't have a crystal ball, you're not an expert, and all that kind of stuff. Math is math. And my number said, and even when Sanjay said with my numbers, he says, yeah, Mike, that'll work.
If you use the lower inflation rate, but it doesn't take, it becomes arbitrary at that point. And that's where you have a legal challenge at some point, because you are just arbitrarily saying what you think inflation will be.
I'm basing on the last 5 years of average inflation that included the pandemic.
So he's looking at all of the metrics.
I get it, and like I said, I'm gonna reserve it till I see the numbers that he's coming up with, because I'm saying these rates are too high. That's what I'm saying.
Mike, can you state your plan to these people? I don't think they know what you're talking
I
about.
don't
It was
have,
15% and 5%.
it was 15% on each side, 15% for the first year because of the way it was distributed, okay? Cause it was coming out, I thought it was great, and then it was 5% every year instead of 10% for both sides, for treated and for, irrigation.
You got voted down
Thanks for
4-1,
working so hard on that. That probably took a lot of time.
It did,
Yeah.
and it looked good.
it did.
So, Mike, if we go back to the treated numbers, where it's, 91 and it's gonna be 95, that's a 3%. Did your thing then say it would be 15% higher for the?
No, because the way that it came up with, which I thought was excellent. I don't know if y'all remember back in 2017, when they did the last rate study.
Yeah.
Okay, and they said we could not do tiered rates anymore. Remember that?
Right, I do
Okay,
remember.
because we were saying, the more water you use,
Right.
the more you're gonna pay for it.
Right.
And that was tiered rates. They said, you can't use tiered rates anymore. So we thought, okay, hell,
what this breakdown, the way that it is apparently it's like tiered rates, but it's not tiered rates. In that, if you have the standard meter that most of us have, the 5/8 to 3/4 inch meter, you're really, and you're not using that much water. I mean, you can see as low as a 7% increase. The bigger your meter is, the more you're gonna pay.
Right.
And they did the same thing with the supplemental fee. The lower meters are gonna save $4, and at $30, you know, the $30 supplemental fee,
Right,
it's gonna be $4 less with this new plan. So that's the way they broke it down. And then when you get to the higher meter sizes, like Nick was saying, you're gonna be paying more. So through the whole thing, it ends up being a 15% increase in revenue. Okay,
okay,
see, so the
Yeah.
whole thing does, okay?
Revenue versus rate.
So, and that's what
100%.
I was.
Say that louder, please.
What?
Can you say what you just said a lot louder?
Revenue versus rate.
It's a 15% increase in revenue versus rates. That is 100% what I've been trying to say. It's not a rates.
But you're presenting to the public.
Right,
They're gonna
that's
get
my
a
point.
15% increase in rate.
Right,
That's not what we're presenting. We're
I
presenting,
understand what you said earlier.
we're presenting that the district needs to generate 15% more revenue. How we come up with that is the rate structure that I went through here.
But there's other sources besides rates.
There are other sources besides rates. Yeah, those are all accounted for. You can
Right.
see that in
Yeah,
here. Those
they're
are
So
all-
the rates don't have to go up 15%, they can go down, they can go up less than 15%.
Sell more water, it goes down.
In certain circumstances.
I'm sorry,
you-
19.
In certain circumstances, you are 100% correct. There are certain things that we can utilize. The property tax is the only other thing really that's a substantive revenue that we can bring in here. And if you look, we have it allocated based on connections. Because there's 80% treated water connections versus 12% raw water connections. So that's where that allocation comes in. That's what you're referring to, I imagine, is property tax, yes?
No, it was-
So what is the revenue you're referring to?
I don't know, you listed a bunch of other things.
Yes.
We can get grants, we can get this, we can get the hydro.
Well,
we can
there's-
get all-
Those are all,
Function on grants.
there's no grants, there's no grants, there's no water sales included in any of
you
them.
Yeah.
cannot include that, but what we
Right.
can do is, if we do get a large grant, or if we do get a large water transfer sale, then we can take that and reallocate, re-understand whether or not we need to increase as much in the future. So the 15, the 10, those are gonna be set rates where we can go up to, but not above those rates in the future years. So we're gonna say 2027, I would have to look at what it is in here. You could go, you don't have to go to that specific dollar amount if it's not, so actually, can you go one more? Right there, perfect. So in 2027, a miner's inch, we are proposing will be $110.99. However, if,
Happened,
I'm sorry?
happened.
Oh, I'm so sorry, you're good catch. So I will go to the miner's inch,
I have to double that one.
Huh?
I have to double.
You have to double that one.
So I know
Yeah.
what they are.
Yeah, so 221.97. Now, if Director Thornborough is correct and the rates are too high, then we won't need to increase to that level. Or if we receive, say we sell $1 million worth of water to off the district, then we will be able to not have to increase our rates as much. If we receive some of the grants that we've been proposing to do work around the district, then those rates don't have to go up. These are only ceilings. These are not mandatory. These are where the district board can set the rates.
Except for the first year.
You still have the option to set the rates wherever you would like. It's recommended from the consultant that these are the rates that he proposes that he thinks will be the best for the district.
Right.
Question,
Yes,
go back to the water financial plan proposed scenario.
what-
It's number 14, page 14 according to the original.
sorry, hang on, I got it. Okay, yes, got you.
No. Water plan.
I have it on mine,
14, yeah, that's it. So your dotted line
yes,
is your proposed revenue.
that is correct.
At what rate is that proposed revenue? Is that at these matches that you said would
Correct.
allow?
Correct.
So that's at the 19.
No, it's at 15% and 10.
No, it's at 19, 10.
It is not 19, it is
Okay.
15.
For
You
the
said-
irrigation for customers, it is.
For your rates, this is the financial plan. You are looking at the apples, not the
But it
oranges.
says proposed revenue.
Revenue, not rates.
I see, I got it, Chris.
Thank you,
I got it, Chris.
thank you.
However, there's still an issue. If you look at these charts here where it says the 15, 10, 10, 10, it actually says revenue adjustment.
Correct. It's not-
So what this saying, so now what this now brings up is, and in the presentation that was done, and Steve will remember, when they were talking about how much the rates were gonna go up, and Steve got real excited, it was 15%, 10, 10, 10, 10. That's how much the rates were gonna go up. Now, on this chart here, if you go to page 14 you happen to be on, see where it says 15, 10, 10, 10, that says revenue adjustment.
It's always said.
Huh?
That's what it's always said.
I get that. Okay, I get that. But where on here does it tell the customers that it's, their rates are going up 19% and 10, 10, 10, 10?
So when you do a rate setting, you are setting a rate, not this. You are not actually setting these numbers. What your consultant is doing is this is how much you need to increase every year to meet your goals. Hold on, let me finish. What you are setting in your Prop 218 notice is what the rates will be or could be in those years. You're not actually setting this 15, 10, 10, 10. This is a financial model, financial plan
Okay,
piece.
I understand now, but
No, I'll go right out this way.
But here's my issue. And I hate to use this term, but I'll tell you what it's looking like to me. This is looking like smoke and mirrors to me. That's what it's looking like. When you're saying, yeah, we need this 15%. Where in here, Nick, does it say the rates are going up 19%? Where? I haven't found it or seen it anywhere, and you can't tell me where it says it's going to 19%.
And all revenue has to go up 15%. The combined revenue from all sources.
Well, it is,
Right?
it's split up, it's allocated,
It's like 88% has to come from the treated side.
right.
And 12% has to come from the raw side, and there just happens to be less customer base on the raw side, so that the increase looks different.
I understand that.
Yeah, but you
Nick. You're
just told me
not
that this is
understanding
smoke and
what
mirrors,
I'm
and
saying.
so
When
there's
you
no
are,
smoke and there's no
where
mirrors.
in here does it tell this treated water, these raw water customers that their rates are going up 19%? Where in here does it say
Is
that?
it going 19 or is it going 19.6?
It says
Uh,
basically this.
I think it's 19%. Where in here does it say that? That their rates are going up 19%? That's my point.
It shows it in the rate allocation, all the different percentages and all the different accounting things. You can't take this and be so linear. I'm sorry, it's just not a
The hell
linear.
you can't.
Right.
If it goes, if the amount you're paying is going up 19%, it's going up 19%.
Draft water rates in the following slides include the results of the EOS and financial plan. Year one, 15%.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Year 2 to 5, 10%.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
I'm still missing 4.6.
Am I hearing this correctly, that all of this rate study is a study and it's proposed, and the board will decide what the actual increases will be?
The board can make whatever decision they want based on the report that's given to them.
Where does the 218 vote come in?
218 is the protest process that you, as a citizen or a customer of the district, can protest the rate and then have your right to speak at the public hearing.
So the process is, the rate study is done, the board takes it into account, makes a determination as to what they want the rates to be increased. The community comes back with a 218 and says, no, 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 and wants to be heard. At that point, the board may reconsider the rates, or like they did last time, say neither.
I don't,
No, if it's protested, the rates can't take effect. If the protest count, if it's,
Oh, that's that it was a percentage,
50% plus one customer.
and we got like 49.
We were really close.
We lost by like 20 votes.
Yeah, not very many.
100.
But
And that vote be divided between the treated and the raw customers?
No,
what do you mean divide? No, they tried that last time.
you can't, it has to be all or nothing.
Okay. Then let's continue this.
And you know, we also have somebody up on the wall,
Raise
as
hand.
well as
Yeah.
Fran.
Have you been up before Rena Devon?
I have no idea.
I have no idea.
I,
either.
despite what people may think, I do not have eyes in the back of my head.
I,
Really?
Chris Campbell had his hand up for like a half hour.
And Chris had his end up.
Finally
at one
gave up.
point, too.
So Chris, Pat, and me, okay?
Chris is no longer has his hand up.
Wow.
Oh, he heard us.
I'm good. This has been
Oh, okay.
belabored long enough.
So Rena Devon.
Rena, go.
Oh, here I
come.
There you
Hi.
are.
I have some, I want it to be explained where we were actually, as irrigation customers, undercharged before by was it 0.5% or 0.05, whatever
4.6.
studies. No, there was the rates where the treated waters were undercharged and we were overcharged. The irrigation customers were overcharged. If you can go back to that page, I don't know if it was back earlier that you explained it, maybe page 4, page 5, something like that. And I wanted to see where that actually came into play, because if we were if we were overcharged this whole time, where is our little break? Where's that coming in when treated water was being undercharged?
Yeah.
So it's the opposite.
It's the opposite.
Raw water was not paying enough. Raw water was underpaying by 4.6%.
No, this wasn't a 4.6, it was a 0.5 or 0.05.
That's the.
And it had a negative, there it is, difference. That was it, you just,
There it
Yeah,
is.
so that means
Yeah,
that
okay.
treated water should have.
Okay, it's opposite. Okay, so this is where the 4.6 came in from initially, is what you're talking about, right? So everybody is going to, even though treated water was overcharged and irrigation was undercharged, everybody is having to pay the 19.6% increase? Or is that only raw water?
The raw water rates, this is a revenue requirement, so this is revenue you're talking about here.
Right, I understand the difference between revenue and rates. I've got that down.
Okay, but you're trying to equate the 15 plus this 4 as 19, and that's not exactly how the math works.
When I write my check, I don't have separate accounts. I have one account, I write one check for this money, this bill. So you have to think in the customer's mind, and you have to dumb down the language, whatever you want to call it, but you have to make it so that we, and I have a college degree. A lot of our treated customers and raw customers don't. So you have to put this in a simple form in real numbers that we can budget for. This is a huge increase for a lot of people. And then also my other question, well, I can do that later. That's off subject, but this is looking like a 55 to 59% increase over 5 years of our water, correct?
Yep.
That's insane. I'm sorry, that's just over the top. What happened in 2019, if I recall, a person that got a lot of treated raw water, got raw water, he cut off a whole section of his orchard, and that's where the fire happened in Cool.
Yeah.
I mean, you're gonna get people dropping again, and we can't risk that up here. And that's it. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Right.
We need to be selling more raw water, is what we need to be doing.
The problem, is you can't sell, you can't sell, you mean, have more customers?
Yes.
Yeah,
That
you can't do that, you keep raising the rates,
Lower rates, you get more customers.
and that's already been proven, when the rates went up, we lost a lot of customers.
Well, see, that's the problem, you lost all that revenue, and you haven't made it up anyplace,
Right.
cause you ain't gonna make it up on the treated water people, I mean,
Raising the
Yeah.
rates, you're gonna lose more customers.
yeah.
Yep. you're
Well, and it was
absolutely
funny
right.
because if you look at the bigger picture, we lost minor inches sold, but we still made money.
I don't recall that.
Well, because we lost,
I thought it was a dollar loss.
I think it said we were, but we were kind of humming along pretty evenly, and it's only in the last, if you look, recently that with all the costs that we now are underpaying by 4.6. That's why rates didn't go up. That's why the rates didn't get, cause we were supposed to be going up 5 to 10% every year.
Right, but that first year that the rates went up, I thought that we lost a net $50,000 because.
But we were still making so much money on
Because of
that,
the increased rate.
of the big
Because-
increases.
Because, but I mean, the bottom line is there was a $50,000 less revenue with fewer customers and
I
higher
think it
rates.
was, I think it was pretty close.
I'll have to go back and look, cause 50,000 sticks in my head.
You lost 50 or 60 inches, didn't it? That first
Yeah,
year.
it was closer, I think it was closer to 100.
Oh,
That's a lot of money.
Mhm.
Yeah, let's face it, it's raw water.
Anyway, Brian's gotta go.
I like to, in my brain, I break it down differently. We first have to clear up the treated water subsidizing the raw water. Okay, and it is just about the same. When you do that, you bump the raw water up about a little over 4%. Okay? And then, after you correct that, you start in with this plan. And it does seem like a lot of, in 5 years of bumping, when you start compounding the percentage, it seems like a lot.
50-some%.
Yeah,
It is,
it is,
That's
okay.
a lot.
And
it's actually 60, if I remember, it's 60-some%.
I would actually like to, can we table this for a month? Or can we send it forward with certain recommendations?
So the board is set to, meet about the report on October 3rd.
2 weeks. About.
And the report's not ready right now. It'll be ready next week.
I mean, there's a draft, but I can't release a draft.
When will the final report be released?
Is that when you said like Wednesday of next
We
week?
should be, Wednesday, Thursday next week. I can't guarantee an
Yeah.
exact date, but it will be before the board posting date, which is Friday. I'm hoping to have it as soon as possible.
And there's review time. For
Well,
how many pages?
It's a legal review, basically, is what we're doing right now. So, I mean, I found a few things. Not, and then mostly it's to make sure that it's, legally, acceptable. Cause becomes a legally defensible document once it's approved by the board.
So the October 3rd that's the official board meeting, that's when the board meeting.
So we set
The normal board, regular board meeting.
Yeah, correct. You're gonna set the rate here, or the public hearing for December and, set the protest notices, set the date the protest notices go out.
In December?
No, they go out, in October.
Okay. All right.
I think one of the things that needs to be brought up to legal is the fact that is not real clear of what the increase really is going to be. When you see those numbers going up, it's an assumption, I guess, that it's 15, when the reality is it isn't 15. Or that needs to have it shown And maybe, let's run this since we, can have ALP get their own private, town hall. Maybe there needed to be a town hall just for the irrigation customers, so they can actually ask these questions. Huh?
No, go ahead, no, I'll talk after you,
Okay,
or I can do it like usual and talk.
yeah.
Hurry this along. will you? Hurry this
So anyway,
along.
that's my concern is that, I mean, it was a misconception by, I would pretty much say the entire board and everybody that's there of what the rates actually were gonna be. And now we're seeing that they are gonna be higher. And that wasn't really made clear. And I saw, new calculations for other part of that report, so I don't know, I'm a little confused on that report now of,
I'm confused because when you do the math, and I guess this is the best way to put it. When you do the math about, now when I did my presentation, which you guys missed, when I did my presentation, I was told, you were there. We can't have a different
correct,
increases or rate increases on treated versus raw. And so, but if you actually look at it, at the raw part, it's 19% increase. Period. That's how much more the customers are going to be paying. Okay, so I understand that whereas on the treated side, it varies all over the place. I understand that on the treated side, you're getting this 15% increase in revenue. Okay, but on the raw side, you don't have it all, what would you call it, proportioned differently. There's one. Okay, and they're gonna be paying 19% more.
But you're not taking into account the different percent allocations that we laid out. And so that's where those different numbers come in. We didn't have that before of how the water should be, how the revenue should be generated from treated versus raw.
I understand all of that, Nick, but what I'm saying is, nowhere in here does it say that the treated water, the raw water customers' rates are going up by 19%.
But
They
that's-
are going up 19%.
That's what we say. It says it right on the, wait.
it says 15%.
That's revenue. It's not the same. It's a
That-
revenue.
Right, we'll go
Nick, will you listen for a second, please? I get the difference between the increase in revenue and versus the increase in the rates. What I'm saying is that nowhere in here have I seen it say the raw water, irrigation water customers rates are going up 19%. I don't see that in here.
It says raw water rates and impacts. So this is where we start talking about what the rates, the difference in a bill will be right here.
What page are you on?
Page 31.
Yep.
This has nothing to do with the revenue portion, which is the 15% we have to generate. This is where the rates are. This is different. I know that they're not linear is the problem. They can't be.
But this wasn't as bolded and put out there.
Yeah, this is literally the same presentation that was used at all the three
I
town halls.
understand, but what I'm saying is,
Oh, there, look at that. I stand corrected.
In one little place.
That one little spot down there says 19%.
We need a magnifying glass.
What page are you on?
31. Look, see? There it is.
Oh, okay.
Boy, talk about,
Hiding it.
We talked
I
about
wasn't
this,
gonna say that.
we talked about this 3 times at 3 different meetings.
We've never talked about this 19%.
We absolutely
You
have.
can throw it up.
we have not,
How come? Neither one of us, we were there.
because I kept asking about it and.
We mentioned this $30 and we told you how much it was gonna be for a year's worth of a miner's inch at $150 approximately, $146. We talked about all these numbers.
But
I'm not
Okay,
sure.
I don't know how to explain it any clearer. When you go up there and you flash it up on the board, member of the public, okay, 15, 10, 10, 10, 10. That's what the public sees. Okay, you flash up on there. Now, what you got in here, now I finally found it on the fourth presentation, is that,
Wait, wait.
oh, here's this 19%,
Fifth presentation,
huh?
fifth presentation.
One,
No, we have
Today
it.
is
3
Friday.
town halls and our meeting.
2 town halls
Okay,
in our meeting.
you're right, 4. But it's still too many that we,
Yeah,
how could we,
yeah.
how could we, and
I mean,
especially,
the
like,
customer's not gonna go through here and double check what they're getting from the presentation.
So what we're trying to show is what the difference, this is why, the reason this is here is a proposed bill. And so we to show a proposed bill for the treated water customers, and that's where the 5%, 25%, or
I get
excuse
that.
me, $5, $25,
I get
which
that.
is, so we go through a whole potential bill, and this is the potential bill for a one, this has always been here. But I don't really appreciate the smoke and mirrors comment, because this is the same presentation that was used, and this was what we discussed for all the different rates, that this was a proposed bill for the miner's inch cost.
Okay,
we do have a question up on the hill.
up on the hill,
Oh, it's,
Overhead.
Sheree.
Sheree,
Name,
Okay, yeah, I have a question. I definitely thought it was 15%, not 19, but I understand like what Mike T's saying. So 19% increase in the bill the first year, what is it in year 2, 3, 4, and 5? 19%, or is it what?
but I did the math, Sheree, it's about 10.
So
at
it's
10.
19 and then 10.
Right.
Okay,
Yeah,
that
I
needs
asked
to
that
be,
question.
you should have a chart that's revenue and a chart that's the rate increase. They're two separate things, like you're saying, but it should be played out. Because that's what the customer, they could care less about our revenue. They care about what they're paying. So just my comment on it. It needs to be definitely clearer.
Yeah, cause we lose a whole bunch of irrigation customers where you get raw water. is
Well,
just
oh,
flowing.
wait a minute. I have one more comment. It's about I believe about 160 inches that have been lost. I don't see how you lose 160 inches in 5 years and you're still making money. It doesn't make sense.
does a rate increase?
Yeah.
Well, they didn't get a rate increase.
No, they paid, the people that got it are paying more money for it.
Not much. Okay. Anyway, it doesn't seem sense because we lost a lot of inches and you're going to lose a lot more here. And then eventually irrigation is going to be down to maybe 100 or 200 customers that are paying. I think in the long run, they want to get rid of irrigation so they can sell the water for a higher fee because they will get a lot more money if they sell it bulk water instead of irrigation without all the costs. That's it. Thank you.
Mike?
Yeah.
You said that the last time they said that we could not have tiered rates,
Mhm.
but the increases for the treated customers are tiered.
Those are not tiered rates.
They are.
They're
The
absolutely
difference-
not.
the
A
difference-
tiered water rate is if you use up to 100 cubic feet, you pay this amount of money. If you, from 100 to 500 cubic feet, this is a different rate for that amount of water. So a tiered water rate has nothing to do with a base charge. The base charge is based on what meter you have. So the term tiered rates that was used earlier was completely incorrect. Tiered rates are how much water you're using, not the amount of the size of your meter.
But the size of your meter affects how much water you're using.
Great, but it doesn't matter. So if 1 cubic foot goes through your 4-inch meter or 1 cubic foot goes through your 1-inch meter, you still pay the same amount for it.
Before the tiered rates, were like Nick is saying, the tiered rates are based on your actual usage of water.
Mhm, mhm.
So that was considered a tiered rate. And this is what I said earlier, and that this is kind of, seems to me like it's a way to get tiered rates, but not having tiered rates. It's based on, the tiered rates are based on usage. The more water you use, the more you pay. That was the tiered rate. This is tiered rates well, okay, it's not tiered rates because it's
Different rate,
based on your
Size.
size of your meter,
right.
not your usage. So that apparently gets it out of being called a tiered rate.
Well, I mean, that's kind of disingenuous. If you wanna all pay the same rate, your 4-inch meter person who has the potential for moving a lot more water, you can pay the same amount as them. I mean, that seems completely reasonable too, doesn't it? Cause you've seen that theirs is $1,200, their base rate. So if we were to reallocate all the charges for
And
a
why is
meter,
theirs $1,200?
because they have the potential for moving more water. They
Then they'll
have,
pay for the more water when they move it.
correct. So,
So if they're
okay.
paying for potential,
Yeah, 100%. So you want everybody to pay the same base rate? The base rates here for a 5/8 meter would go to like $600, $400, something like that. So this is, I mean, this is a way to make it equitable for everybody when you have the people who are having smaller meters, they have less potential for moving water. There's less.
so I don't understand what the charge is for. It's just to have a meter.
It's how,
Hold on a
no,
second,
no.
hold on a second.
Wait,
First of
she
all-
asked a question, so I wanna make sure I answer that question.
Well,
You're confusing the question. First of all, what I said was not disingenuous. It's 100% accurate. You're saying the same thing. You and I are saying the same thing. Is that the rates are different based on the size of meter.
Right,
Period.
right.
That's not considered a tiered rate.
I understand that.
Okay.
My next question was, what is, you can't charge people for what you don't provide, or you can't charge higher than what it costs to provide. What service is the meter itself providing?
The cost of service it's encompassed as a whole. Okay, so the cost of service is all the things
Yeah.
that your employees, I mean, everything that costs to
Right,
run the
Right,
district.
right.
That's your cost
That's
of
all your
service,
expense, yeah.
right? Okay, so then when you look to the revenue sources, the only one that we have control over is the rates, the water sales revenue. That's the only thing we have any control over.
Okay.
And so the rest of them, except, well, property taxes, we get a little bit, but all the other sources of revenue, we don't really have any control over, like property taxes, et cetera.
Mhm.
So you just have the water, income, okay, water sales income. So when you go and raise the rates, that's how you get that extra, that's how you get that extra revenue to offset the cost of service that you have to increase. So what they're doing is they're taking part of that revenue is the base charge. Okay, so the base charge of the meters or the base charge that everybody pays, and then you have the actual water usage. Okay, so what they're saying is that, okay, well, we're gonna increase we're gonna proportionate this part of the cost of service based on the size of your meter. The size of the meter is, that determines how much water you can use. Okay, for example, if somebody with a 4-inch meter, or somebody with a 3/4-inch meter, no way in hell could use as much water as somebody with a 4-inch meter, it's just physically impossible.
Right.
Okay, so that's why it was all proportioned in that manner, which I agree with.
So if somebody is paying for the potential of more water than they're ever going to use, can they reduce the size of that meter?
Yes.
In some instances, yes, in some instances, no.
Okay, and that's a cost that is borne by the customer,
Correct.
100%.
And that's what some people might do that have the 1-inch, because there's a jump between the 3/4-inch meter, or what they call the 5/8 3/4 meter, there's a jump between that on the base rate and the 1-inch. Okay, now, so what some people can do, assuming they can do it legally, and we'll get to that in a second, is go from 1-inch and get a 3/4 put in. That they can do. However, if a newer building and stuff that has fire sprinklers, you're required to have a minimum of 1-inch meter. So.
And that again is for the potential of water use.
And is that
That-
treated
that's-
or?
That's because you have to get.
Just treated.
Just.
Well, because you're not using your sprinklers all the time, and in case of emergency.
Correct.
That's
To have
code.
enough water source to.
Yeah, you have to have.
fulfill the-
for-
It's
flow.
code, you have to have a 1-inch meter
Okay.
for fire sprinklers. I don't know who's.
I don't know what I'm doing.
Who's calling?
Please.
I have a couple things. And we've talked earlier about the 8 customers is outside of this district, and then you propose the rates that you're gonna like kill them with on these, water rates. What are the chances of those people all disappearing? I think it's pretty good.
So, Steve, I understand that that's an issue, however, you can't have these people who are within the district subsidizing a portion of their rates. And so that is not fair to the other customers. That becomes arbitrary if we start to say, well, we think we should only charge them this much. It's the same argument that used to come about was treated water subsidizing raw water? Well, these raw water customers absolutely are subsidizing those 8 raw water customers. So I can't legally do that anymore.
But they're all in the same ditch. Right.
But they don't pay the property tax
Right.
portion that comes into the district. So Steve, you pay property tax to us. They do not. So technically, you're subsidizing them as well. You don't get raw water, do you?
No.
Then you're subsidizing their raw water rates. Everybody here who is 1,000 customers within our district are subsidizing them so they can have cheaper water rates.
And those 8 people are the ones that were somehow grandfathered in?
Correct, yes. They are not within our service area. They're not,
Oh, I know one of them up above here.
you know,
And they've had it forever.
so before the rate study was done in 2017, they did pay higher rates. They did pay unsubsidized rates. And so when they did the rate study in 2017, it was like it was missed, or it was not included and not calculated correctly. So for basically the last 6 years, they haven't been paying a fair rate.
Okay, another thing, I agree with Cherie, her comment, and Bill Trepples. You raise the rates on these customers and you're gonna lose them. Another thing is, I wanna make a proposal today for Mike Thornborough to redo his proposal that he did the other, at the board meeting, which was a great presentation. Instead of, you had the 15% and 5% for the treated, and then redo it again and do the 15% and 5% for the
And that's
raw
what
water customers and
No, it popped in my head, cause the big issue was that, with this inflation thing, we weren't gonna have, it was gonna have a narrow leg. What we should have did, and the program had that capability, is just changed that 5% for the first year that I have for irrigation, and just popped in 15, and then that would have showed we had a lot more money at the end at those lower rates, and
Well, if you
I'm gonna do that, I'm gonna
do
do that, I'm gonna do
Because
that.
then the irrigation customer would be happy. A happy customer is a content customer.
Mhm.
You tick them all off and they're gonna head for the hills. They're not gonna pay this stuff. So we gotta make people happy here around here. The customers are the most important thing, right?
There's always
That's
right.
all, that's what it's all
There's always
about.
right.
Hey, the more ag customers we have, the easier it is, cause the water's flowing down the ditch anyway. All you gotta do is put it in a box.
Yes,
The whole purpose and intent of why I went through all that to do that is I don't agree with, going out and initially charging more than you have to. Because in this instance, you raise it more than you have to, then you're gonna lose customers. Okay, so if you, tighten that up a little bit, which is what my intention was to do, and I guess you had to be there. I was a little bit miffed about the fact that, Sanjay, the expert in all this, he plugged in my numbers and he actually said, yes, that'll work.
I heard that.
And then for some reason, it went south and it hurt.
You're gonna do the 15% on both though.
If I do that on both of them, that's the,
19%.
right, that-
15%.
yeah. Oh, yeah. So, but all my figures are based on, like Nick was saying, is the increase in revenue. That's what my figures are based on, cause like I said, that's the only thing, the water sales is all you can do for, as far as have any control over the rate, that's where your rates are.
Yeah.
And so, and then I have put in all the same percentages that Sanjay, the guy that did all this. I really like the way that he split everything up, like Nick was saying, where, like property tax revenue, 88% goes to treated, 12% goes to raw water. Yeah, and I'd never seen it presented that way before, and I thought that was awesome.
Yeah.
And if you do it that way, it shows that raw water is definitely not being subsidized by treated water.
so.
And it's easy to get more raw water people if we can get them, because just the water's flowing down the ditch,
Yeah,
you know? I mean,
it's right there.
it's right there.
Why is the model so much on the first year and then a reduction in the last and not a more steady increase, you know, an 11, 11, 11, whatever number would work out to be?
Because we're not, we would be in the red, in the first year. We've tried to do different, metrics. We tried to do 12, 12, across the board, and it just doesn't, we don't stay inside this is the one that is important. We don't stay inside the green boxes. So it's the green box. If we don't increase the 15%, this green box goes to about right here.
Everybody else has blue boxes.
Whatever, color we have here.
Well, I'm looking at the one that says it's gonna go down and then 2029, we're gonna be in the red.
Yeah,
I'm
so
just wondering how it affects that.
this is the same,
Yeah,
so
10, I think, page.
this is,
We did.
no, this is the same graph with the rate increase, with the revenue increase. So this is that same with the red,
Remember, Nick?
There.
Yes, that one there,
You're
that
right.
one there.
so this
So
is
the
the
short answer
same,
is it doesn't.
50.
it doesn't quite work. This is the same graph that you saw with the red, yeah, okay, so that's with nothing, that's status quo, this is with the increase. It's the
So
same,
where is this one?
On the other page, turn it over.
go to page 15.
On the back of his, he's got the right one, right there.
No, that's different. This is all the revenue requirements. This is the fund balances that we have to meet. This is the goal that we have to meet.
I'm looking, I'm going back and forth.
Okay, never mind.
So, if you're outside of the green, then you basically are kind of in that,
But there's a little bit of wiggle room in 26. The
yeah,
only one that's directly.
It doesn't.
same is 28.
yeah, that's where it gets really bad. So if you don't do it initially higher, then it gets really bad in 28.
What happens in 2028 that causes so much more?
The capital improvement plan, there's more work that needs to be done and proposed in that year.
Spending.
Yeah.
Well, getting
No.
water to your house reliably.
But that getting water to our house on the raw water side is already done, right?
Yeah, but
Never
don't
mind.
we still have to
No, no,
do,
just
I mean,
stop.
that's,
That was a snark. Just stop.
I like to have one quick thing, and to address your question on 15%, is that you gotta remember that we went 2 years outside of the 218, the 5 years, the end of that 5 years for that 218, we went 2 years and there was no increases for those 2 years.
Right, because the board froze it at.
No, this is 2 years, it's been 7 years since the last 218.
what he's saying is the next rate study should have been completed at the end of 22 and taken effect in 23. So 23 and 24.
So we're
Why
already
didn't it?
halfway through, huh?
Why didn't it?
Well, there's a lot of reasons. One of the reasons was I wasn't here because there was multiple general managers in that time frame, and so nobody was really kind of like guiding the ship. And there was a lot of information that the board was seeking and wanted to have 100% accuracy on, and so we were waiting for some of that stuff. And I'll let
So you
Mike.
couldn't do two-
The big piece of the puzzle was an asset management study that was happening. We call it our castle study, and it's not like castle like a building, it's castle like an acronym for a company. Basically it said how much maintenance we needed to have. So you can't set rates or understand what a capital improvement plan is. That's that long term, I told you, 35 to 50-year plan of how much we need to spend over those timeframes to keep getting water reliable to your house. If we don't do it and we just let everything crumble, then it costs way, way more down the line. And so this is kind of a set, every year we do a little bit. And I'll let Mike kind of talk about the rest of it if he wants to talk anymore.
Well, that's pretty well.
I got a
Go
question.
ahead.
At the last meeting,
Yeah, we see you on the camera. Hang on one second.
the last board meeting, on the chart that Bill and Ray have right in front of them right there, I had a question about how over the last 7 years, we haven't really had any rate increases, I mean, especially over the last 2 And we start out at where everything is all fine in the year we're at now, and then pretty quick, everything's been fine. Then it goes downhill, it's like a straight downhill, we're out of control, what's going on? I had that question before, and I never really I got an explanation that I really didn't understand, because if we're doing fine for the last 7 years, how come now we're taking a big dive into the ravine? You can see it on the chart right there.
So I can take it, or I can let Mike take it, because I know he understands this. We had really, the funding for our CIP program. And, as Mike knows, we wanted to put about $1 million or so into that CIP. And so what we've been doing is, this is the $1 million, and every year we've been kind of doing this with our expenses. And so now we're here, and there's no $1 million left to go into CIP, so now we're borrowing against money that's in our reserve account. And so that's why that graph with the red looks so drastic, is because once you start borrowing, the money goes away very, very quickly.
But isn't our reserve account at a 4.5% interest rate?
I mean-
Gaining maximum dollars, I mean.
So when you start to take money away from that, though, you start taking the 4.5% away instantly as well. So just because you have money in an investment account, once you start spending against it, so your savings, you have a savings account, right?
Mhm.
When you start spending your savings money, does it still generate that revenue, or does it you start losing that revenue as well?
I don't think we're to that point yet, as far as then, because we're still, the interest is covering, the interest received on that money
Yes.
is covering, well, mostly what we're expending.
Yeah, but what I'm trying to say is, once you start going into the red and.
Right, once you start pulling into
Then it-
that, which we are not to that point yet.
But we will be next year.
Right.
Oh, we aren't pulling anything out of those accounts currently. Correct? The money is just being rolled over.
So we have a operating reserve account that is the California class, and that money is where we are covering the expenses. So yes, we have money in CDs and we have monies in treasuries that are sitting there, but the additional, where we're spending money on capital projects, is coming out of the additional income, investment income that we have.
One thing that disturbs me, it concerns me, is that you're raising 15% the first year, 10% the following years. I get a 2% COLA for my retirement
I understand.
a year,
Mhm.
and that's not mentioned in here.
Um,
That there's gonna be no increase in funds for the rate payers.
So we base the 10% is based on the inflation rate that was calculated in the financial plan. So that is somebody who is much far smarter than I am in the accounting world. And he has calculated what he proposes inflation will be for the various categories. And so, when Director Thornborough did his, it was kind of a flat across the board 3%. And he breaks those all down into different categories, and he shows his justification will be why, where, how, when, all those types of things, those inflations will happen. Now, if the inflation rate comes back lower and we can recalculate or recalibrate, that's absolutely something that we can do. So as I tried to state earlier, the 10% is not a mandate. It doesn't have to go up by 10% in year 2. It doesn't have to go up by 10% in year 3. Those are the ceilings. Those are as far as you can take. And that's what Prop 218 says, is you have to set a cap of how far the board can justify setting the
Okay.
rates. So if it's 100, and I'm just gonna use a round number, if it's $100 in year 26, they can go up to, but not over that $100. So if they think $92, which equates to a 2% increase, will do the job, excuse me, then they can do a 2% increase. They don't have to do the full 10%.
So then we don't have to do, can we say we're not going to do the 15%, but we still have to do the 4.6%?
So the 4.6% is based upon the rates. That's a different calculation than the 15%.
Okay,
You
so,
can say, I want, that the rates will only be up to, 10%. I don't know what the number would be, but yes, you can absolutely, as a board, set that rate lower. Now, if you don't come in with enough, then you have to come back and you have to potentially raise higher in the second year.
And
We'll make cuts.
if we raise higher in the first year, is there a fund where that excess can be taken and moved into as a reserve?
So that's part of the, if you go to, this page right here, so page 14, you can see that the light blue on the very, very top, yeah, it's really hard to see because the kind of black line clouds it most of the way. That would be the reserve fund that you're referring to. And so part of the way, rate setting is done is you have to develop a reserve. And that was what we talked about in the beginning, was there is these kind of emergencies, these other metrics that we have to account for. Those are the reserve fundings. So that little light blue box on the top.
Now it's changed. Rena.
Thank you.
Sorry.
You
So,
moved across the page.
so when, not if, but when we lose irrigation customers from this rate increase, especially the outliers, how do you propose to make up that money? Are you going to revisit and raise our rates again as irrigation customers in order to compensate, to justify the word that you've used, to justify to 218? Right now, you're not even justifying this initial rate increase. I propose forward thinking on irrigation customers and literally lowering our rates a bit to attract back who we've lost, not lose the outliers. And I used to be in manufacturing. I used to own the largest screen printing plant in Northern California. And the more we got as far as orders from our main customer, we would chip away the price. It's basic marketing. And I want to see something progressive like that here from you guys, from the board. Can we please be progressive thinking on this instead of backward thinking, and start just taking a few little chances with this, bring some common marketing goals in and just attempt it and see, and lower our fire danger. And I use the water like crazy, irrigation water. I don't have the account. I have the spigot. I don't have the account. So I'm not looked at for numbers, but I know them because 7 of us share on the 2 ponds, and I have a large garden that I water, and I water my property with the irrigation water. I use it like crazy. So I keep my fire danger down because of that. I keep huge buckets of water, containers of water around. If we get evacuated, that kind of thing. I have a pump in my pond that I use, that I pump the water out for the irrigation water. Maybe you bring forward some programs, some ideas for people so that they can actually start becoming more progressive in their own thinking as far as their land, their property, because they can afford it again. So that's my proposal. And also the question, are we going to foot the bill when you lose those customers?
Yeah.
Amen. We've lost a bunch already. We had that
Get the
money,
old ones
we
back.
wouldn't be having the conversation.
They said that they've been putting out, trying to get them back, but I mentioned several meetings ago to let customers know that the rates are going up unless we can get more people, and then the rates could potentially go down.
Well, I
don't see that that's,
see you drop the rates and see if they come back.
Unfortunately, we can't
Yeah.
account based on potential.
Well, hey, you either swim or drown.
But it's
And
the
all I
difference.
can see is you're going ahead, you're gonna have less and less customers, and pretty soon all you're gonna have is the expensive water, which is the treated water. Nobody's gonna take it. And it's flowing through the ditch. We don't have to do anything more. All we gotta do is open a box someplace. I don't understand it. I'm a farmer.
It's the difference in having a private company and a public. The private has much, you could do what you're suggesting under the private, no questions asked. But because this is a public entity, in my opinion, it makes it really difficult.
And I agree with her.
It's unfortunate, but if you notice that line where the debt coverage, if we don't make that debt coverage, then it has, long-term ramifications that are dire for the district and, you know,
Well, we might not make it anyway. You lose every one of your irrigation customers. You're gonna have to really double up on the treated water to get your money coming in. I mean, let's face it, you gotta balance
it's
it.
a
That's
double-edged sword.
And it's already been proven, exactly what y'all was saying. It's already been proven. And then everybody said this, especially Steve and myself, that if you raised, cause they went from 3-something a season to 771.
Yeah.
You know, and it's like, you know, and then we said at the time, you know, you do that, you're gonna lose all these customers, which means you're gonna lose all this revenue, but that's what was done, and we all know the result of that.
Right.
And fortunately, it's not going up anywhere near as much as it went up in 2018.
That's
Nowhere near.
That almost
You're not gonna get
So
that.
this is going, it's going up with $29 per miner's itch, $29 a month. Times 5 months.
Yeah, but our business is to sell water. Our business is to sell water.
I understand.
That's our business.
I understand.
And if you don't sell water, you don't make money.
Right.
If you sell it for a little bit less, get all those people back, that money's coming back in,
And
you know?
you're getting no argument,
You know?
but Fran's right. Okay, you can't, when it's a public entity, you gotta follow certain rules. You can't be saying, well, you know what, if we go and lower this down, then we'll get a whole lot more customers and all that.
Well.
That has a lot to do with it.
Well, also,
guess.
you remember, we were trying to ask the district to, this committee was asking the district to look at selling more water to get the customers back. And get, you know, do a little more, PR to get customers back.
What do you mean selling more water? To customers?
The customers, yes, to
Right.
put it out there, because for years and years, we never put it out there. The district never put it out there, that we have 5 inches over here that could be sold on this lake, and.
The problem is the price of it. That's why you don't have more
No,
customers.
But most of the people didn't know that it was available. A lot of people, I shouldn't say not most, but some people didn't know it was available. And so if they don't know it's available, we have a lot of new people in the neighborhood, don't know, that there's irrigation water available. You know, that information is not out there where people can, readily get it and understand it. You know, if they don't have a neighbor that comes over and embraces them and gives them the history of the neighborhood of what water is available, and that they could go and contact the district and get information and actually have customer service where the guys go out and talk to them and walk through the system to explain it to them. You know, if you don't make it a customer service oriented business, then we're kind of losing our revenue.
It's like fishing, huh?
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a very good point. Yeah.
Well, you guys had asked for that to happen.
Yeah.
And I have a neighbor who thought he was still on a waiting list.
And there, we understand, we don't have a waiting list.
But he didn't know that.
You had a waiting list for years before I started.
So
He's not
he
sure.
thinks he's on a waiting list.
But he thought he was still on a waiting list.
Well,
It
I
seems
think-
like he made the call.
Could contact the district at any
Yeah.
point. I mean,
Yeah.
you're on the committee, so you would have known that there wasn't a waiting list when we did the ordinance.
I'm
you could
saying,
put it-
when I talked to him, he thought, I have no idea what he did after with the knowledge.
I understand.
But when I first mentioned it, he was like, but I was on a waiting list, why didn't they contact me?
Hey, put an article in Mountain Democrat. We got water to sell.
Yeah.
What the heck? That's pretty easy.
Well, I thought
So we do put out notifications of what is available on each leg, and we have a chart that shows how many
Where?
inches are
I
available.
don't know what this person,
That's Cherie.
They're both
Cherie,
aware.
you're, all I see is
Yeah,
a
but
phone
they
number
both had
there. I
questions
don't,
that asked where that was at.
I can't
Hello?
call you because all I see is a phone number.
Oh, it's me. Can you
Okay,
hear me?
well.
Can you hear?
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay,
Uh-oh.
okay, I'm have a comment on the 8 out-of-district customers. I bet you there's a few of them that aren't aware that they're not, a district, actual district, in the district customers. And I know some of those and they're all up Wentworth Springs. And what's unfortunate, they were some of the original irrigation customers from like the 1940s. I have a relative up there that their account's been since 1940. They also don't realize if they sell their property, the new customer will not get irrigation. But I think the board or the district needs to notify these 8 people that they can also go to the county LAFCO and they can get put into the district, but it will cost money. But I think someone needs to notify these customers separately in some way to realize that they're different than a regular irrigation customer. And I also do not recall back at the previous rate study that they paid any different rate. It was one rate, I believe, for all customers.
They will be notified with they'll get a mailer for the,
Right, but are they gonna know they're an out-of-district customer when they get the thing showing a regular customer and an out-of-district customer? Are they gonna know they're out-of-district? Because when I was doing the recall, I went to look up my relative and he couldn't vote. That's because he wasn't in the district. And I didn't realize it until I got back to the meeting and talked with Steve Palmer, and that's what he told me. That's how and they may not know they're out of district. So I think a board member or somebody needs to talk to those 8 people after the rate study's done. Anyway, just my opinion.
No, should we
I
move
don't
on?
hear any volunteers. I don't know where we are. I've lost track of.
I think
Are we
we're in the-
continuing to go through this, or are we done, or
C.
what do you want to do?
I think we're on the next item.
Well, unless you have a recommendation to the board on the last item.
Aye.
Oh, y'all.
Do we have any recommendations for it? Well, I think it depends on the report, doesn't it?
See what it says here. Where are we?
We're still on B.
You should
B,
be.
okay. Irrigation appointment, interest confirmed, discussion, we've been there. Review irrigation committee.
Just says discuss changes.
We don't have any, well, lower is better.
Lower for what? I think the next item is 8C, or sorry, 6C, I apologize.
Irrigation committee appoint interest confirmation discussion.
Sorry, I can't.
Get it a little closer.
Came on-
I'm getting old.
We each came on for a 2-year stint.
What?
That's item 6C.
Yeah, we kind of talked about this last time, so we just needed to verify if everybody wanted to continue on the committee. We're gonna put this forward as a consent item for the next board meeting, that we are gonna reconfirm you all for another 2 years.
Thank you.
Unless
Sounds
there's
good to me.
anybody who does not want to be reconfirmed.
I don't wanna miss all this fun.
Oh, yeah. So that's a simple one.
I would like to not be the
President.
Chairman,
chairman.
We can make that at the next meeting.
Okay, that'd be fine.
vice chairman.
We can,
If someone else is gonna be chairman,
we can bring that back for the next meeting and we can set
Okay.
new officers. I
That
think we
sounds
just wanted to make sure that reaffirm the commitment first.
vice chair, do you wanna do?
I'll be the door catcher.
Yeah, well, that's what I wanna do too.
And then the last item is,
Can I ask one question?
Of
Do
course.
we get, has the applicant moved forward?
we have reached out to them several times and they have not reached back out to us. So we've sent them emails a few times here and
Okay.
there. So if you have any contact with them, okay. There was
I only know that
the
one.
okay. Yeah, he none of, honestly, we had about 3 or 4 perspective and they've all kind of gone quiet.
Oh, well, let's get one back up.
Gee, I wonder why.
He came to the meeting.
Yeah, I think he's interested. I think it's just a timing thing.
Okay, so D, review of irrigation committee meeting schedule.
Hang on one second.
Yeah, go ahead.
Chairman. Sheree, is that still a hand raised or are you, is that an old hand?
I'm letting
That's a
that,
young hand.
I'm letting that one go.
Thank you. Looks like she put it down, so we're good.
Yeah.
So it must have been an old hand.
Old hand.
Okay, so I guess we're on
Meeting
D.
schedule.
The meeting schedule. I think what we're talking about here is, when and if we have too many or, I think this was something that was, suggested by the irrigation committee as to what kind of, time commitment we all wanted to put forth on this committee to make sure that it's not too onerous on your highly paid service. So if there's any suggestions of dates that we don't wanna meet, or, typically this is a once a month. What are we, the second Tuesday now of the month?
So it looks like December and January is what I see as a no.
Winter recess.
It's like a 2-month recess for guys.
Or and if you wanna do maybe a recess in season or leading up to season or right after season, I think we can, explore whatever it is that you think is best. So we wanna make sure to keep the same participation and not make this onerous on you all.
Does anyone have opinions, I guess is the question.
And look at that one too later.
Haven't heard any so far.
I like a recess over the winter, December and January.
I'll go for that.
Because figure
Thought
February,
we already
March,
had that.
April, it's when you guys make the decision to move something to the board.
April is when the board makes the decision.
We make the decision, so February and March have to be when the discussion starts about the season.
So March is the real important one for you all. April is, it's important, but the decision typically has already been made for you all. So, that February, like she said, February and March are the kind of the working, meetings for this committee. Have you, I'm sorry.
Oh, and I would suggest, like February, March is when you're, re-looking at all the documentation going out. I know the documentation for service maybe needs to be looked at in November before we end the committee. Because I think it goes out in January, correct? Request for irrigation.
Because the continuous,
So November would be, say, the last meeting of the year, but we review all the documents that have to go out in January.
yeah, and I think we reviewed them earlier this year, made the changes and approved them.
Yes.
Right.
So they should be ready.
I'm saying to relook at them again, if there's any changes that need to be made, since you're gonna have probably a November meeting, make that part of your November meeting.
The only other dates that you may wanna potentially not meet would be the April or the maybe not, because that's gonna be start of
That's
season.
when.
But April, if you wanted to take a short recess after you guys have made your
Or
decision,
maybe just do
or June
one,
and July.
the July, because that seemed to be when everybody was bugging out on vacation. And we're in the heat of irrigation and everybody's kind of,
See,
the problems hopefully are all
Right.
worked out by the time we get that far.
Did we not have July? I thought we did not have August.
June is one of
We
them.
had, we did not have June, we did have July.
August,
We had August.
August we didn't have because we didn't get our quorum.
So, I mean, that probably can be decided at a later date. Okay, it looks like everything's going good. Why don't we just skip this month? I mean, you don't have to make a decision, but
You can set that no meeting will be happening at the next, you can set,
yeah.
a leapfrog date if you need to.
Yeah, cause I'm just thinking, if we do the November meeting, review the documents and push those forward to the board, so the board has them, and then they go out in January, then
So we have
check that box off. We don't have meetings, the board has to have all the meetings.
the decision on this will not be until next month.
Is that right? Okay.
Now you wanna put tentative next to some of the dates so that we know which ones we don't wanna have and which ones we absolutely have to have.
Yeah.
So we can do tentative April, tentative July, or you could do any of the sorts, but obviously, we're saying February, March are not optional. November is not optional. And then the other ones are, I mean, some of those are stronger than others. I just wanna kind of get some consensus from the committee.
You're not gonna really know until you find out what documentations are rolling through and what is actually happening, cause, you know, if you have dynamic changes in the district, cause we don't know what's gonna be happening. We may or may not, you know, they may or may not want to have those meetings.
Totally fine. We can leave it the way it is, and you all, as a committee, can decide whether or not you wanna meet the next month or not.
So that, all this decision will be made at our next meeting.
For all the dates of the year, or just or, okay, what
I think
I'm
moving-
hearing that you wanna do every meeting, we decided to have a next month meeting?
I think that's what they're saying.
The decision was that February, March, and November are mandatory or
And those are the ones.
very much needed.
Yes.
Beyond that, it's open, I guess.
For sure you have something to do.
Yeah, well, we have an obligation to make.
I mean, I wouldn't have a problem just setting the months of January, April, August, and December as no meeting months. As a matter of.
I would say July, not August, I would say July.
Well, August is the one we had problems with this.
I see.
That's why. It could be either one.
We could just write tentative next to them, and that would be, if you don't wanna have them, those would, we kind of would mark the ones we know that may be less than needed.
Yeah, and then have a query for the agendas for the November meeting of certain items. And then of the February and March meetings for certain items.
We could have set items on specific months, but
Correct.
we're going to cover this.
Yeah, we do, we have a matrix, so we. like a
Well, that's what
planning
I'm saying,
matrix
that-
that we use.
Set that up like that.
But we could have the agendas set up also in advance.
Yeah, so that's what I'm saying, we have a
You
planning
do.
matrix.
We haven't seen it, right?
Oh, well,
As a committee, we only see it.
sure, yeah, we
3 days
could, we,
before.
Yeah.
Yeah.
we could send out, kind of our planning matrix of what,
Yeah, that would be good, planning, maybe.
we can say, what months are having specific,
Right.
work to do, like, Director Seaman said, you know, this is the work that needs to get done in these
Right.
months, so,
That would be helpful.
Just so we don't keep pushing it and forget and go, oops,
sure.
cause that's kind of what we were getting to last year, where the forms had already gone out. And we were doing a catch up. So this way we can catch them on the front end before they go out.
You need to make a motion at any time.
I have it as a request.
So we can come back with a planning matrix at the next meeting. And we can come back with kind of, marking the, you know, asterisking the really important dates. So you all can see that, and we can put a tentative, just a parentheses next to the ones that are less important. So if we need to take a month off, then we can know which months to take off. And we can bring that
I
back
think that would
with
be
the,
helpful. All right,
and we can bring that back with the officer selections as well, so.
Yeah, like that.
sounds
At
good.
least that way it fits in you guys' schedule.
But we beg to serve you, we live to serve you all, so whatever you guys want as a schedule is what we will do.
So, number 7, irrigation committee member comments and reports. Anyone have any comments or reports? Hearing none, yeah?
No comments.
Oh, no comment. Agenda items for the next irrigation committee meeting.
That we will have agenda items identified for the next meeting.
Okay, there you go.
Planning for the year.
Next meeting date and adjournment. Irrigation committee set the 3rd Tuesday of each month for regular committee meetings and during the irrigation season and as needed or directed by the board. The next regular irrigation committee meeting will be on October 15th.
It'll be also the end of season, so we can, celebrate.
Okay, there we are.
Water goes off. Pray for a miracle.
So with that,
Isn't it the start of next season? September is the end of the season. New season starts 10/1, right? Am I correct?
No,
No, the
10/15.
season ends at
Yeah.
10/15.
Okay,
Irrigation.
In
shut off.
between. And we may wanna put a notice out saying that irrigation will be going off on
Reminder.
October 15th.
Yeah.
Just, oh, by the way,
Okay, we could.
oh, you know what I'm saying, it's up, cause that, nobody remembers.
With the 15th?
Well, some people don't remember.
Nick,
Yeah.
if the season, last day of the season is the 15th, when do you actually turn the water off? Is it like a
The
week
12th,
before
it's between the 10th and the 12th. It's about, takes 3 to 5 days.
for that water to get calmed down, huh?
It's like the end of the flush.
Yeah.
We actually
Okay.
start ramping down about 2 weeks before, but really the water gets shut down and we start to pull stuff on that a couple days before.
Adjourning?
No pause in the air.
Yeah, let's adjourn.
We have to have a
Next
motion.
meeting date and adjournment, next meeting date is on the 15th of October, and with that, it's adjourned.
Motion to
Motion.
adjourn.
I moved to.
Okay,
Second.
moved and seconded to, all in favor?
Aye.
Good work, people. That's the end.
Okay. That's nice, and go back up in.
First time I've been able to-